Is it a barbell? Is it a 45-pound cable attachment? Or is it a guillotine death trap? Find out on today's episode of The Home Gym Hacker. This is Eugene coming to you from my home gym, and today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favorite specialty bars, which is none other than the Gearforfit Cambered Multi-Grip Swiss Bar. I would like to mention that I am not affiliated with Gearforfit, and I bought this bar with my own money, so this is going to be a completely unbiased and brutally honest review as always. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would you want to get a Swiss bar in the first place? Well, there are a few reasons. For me personally, it was more so for medical reasons. At one point, while I was ramping up my volume and pressing weights, I started to experience some pretty severe tendonitis in my left arm and elbow, and I found that doing pressing movements in a neutral position felt a lot better than using a straight bar. So, after doing a bunch of research on what's the best Swiss bar to get for my money, I landed on this Gearforfit Swiss bar. Another reason you may want to get this bar is just to add some exercise variety to your pressing movements, if just because you want to change it up and maybe get a deeper stretch due to the cambered effect of the bar, and ultimately it just feels really good for pressing movements. This bar is very obviously a replica of the Kabuki Cadillac bar, but it is a lot cheaper. There are a few other companies that sell a very similar bar, and I suspect that they may all be made in the same factory in China and then white labeled like so many fitness products are. You may take a look at something like the Fringe Sport multi-grip cambered bar and a few other ones in the market, and they all look very similar, except some finishes may be a little bit different. So let's get into some details about this bar. This bar weighs 45 pounds, which is the same weight as your standard Olympic bars, so that means your gym math remains easy to do, and that was one of the selling points for this bar as well. The knurling on the handles, and I would call it relatively passive, but it gets the job done. And it also has this little hook here, which you could potentially use as a cable attachment, but who would really want to use a 45-pound cable attachment? I think that's just some Insanity Wolf meme level stuff. Now, a few things to note about this bar. When it gets delivered, it comes in 3 pieces. Basically, these sleeves then bolt on with 3 of these M10 bolts. The sleeves do not rotate, and they are also not ridged. They are smooth and chromed, so that means you're really gonna wanna use some collars when you're using this for your benching, because the plates slip off of this one really easily if you don't use collars. Now, this bar is advertised as being useful for either pulling or pressing movements, but in reality, you're only going to be using it for pressing movements. It's a great bar for obviously doing any kind of a bench press. As part of my program, I generally use it for doing flat benching. I use it for incline benching, overhead presses, as well as close grip pressing movements, and it does a really good job at all of those. When you're doing a bench press, you get this really deep stretch thanks to the camber, and when doing close grip, again, it just has a really good pressing feel to it. When it comes to storage, storing it can be a bit more awkward than your standard type of bar. For me, I just keep it at the top of my rack because I use this bar frequently enough, and I'm short enough where if it's just hanging above on some J-cups there, that I'm not going to bump my head into it. Storing it on vertical wall-mounted barbell storage doesn't work that great, again because it has a somewhat awkward shape and design to it. Another option is using some kind of a floor-based barbell holder, which, again, depending on the height of your ceiling, may or may not be a great idea. For me, it barely clears my 94-inch ceiling, so I just prefer to keep this in my rack, and then I can just, put it into action really quickly and put it away pretty quickly. That being said, the bar does have a few flaws. Now, one thing I wish I could improve about the bar are how close the collars come to my rack. My rack is a 49-inch width rack, which is going to be similar to the Rogue racks. I know the Rep and other imported racks tend to be 47 inches, which does give you a bit more clearance here. One of the issues I constantly run in with this bar is I'll bump the plates into my J-cups or the side of the rack or the safeties as I'm doing my movements. And sometimes I end up putting an additional collar here just to space my plate out a bit more. Or I just have to be really focused and keep my movement really tight so that I don't bump up against the rack. And that's probably my number one complaint about this bar. The second issue that I have with this bar is it tends to be a bit unstable when it doesn't have any plates on it, which is also another reason why doing any kind of pulling movements on it just doesn't work that well. The bar, when you do load it, really wants to be in this upright position, and it generally feels unstable if you're trying to lift it when its camber is pointing down. Now, using this thing as a cable attachment is something I definitely would not recommend. Just getting it up there felt like I'm risking my life. And then you have to remember you have to set your stack to at least 50 pounds or it's just going to pull the cable out because it weighs 45 pounds. So, well, maybe they added that little loop there for marketing reasons. I don't really know, but this is definitely not a practical use for this bar. And while using it as a cable attachment, the movement itself does feel pretty good. It's just not practical to lug 45 pounds up there every time. And also, that means you're taking off 45 pounds from the weight of your stack whenever you're doing your pull downs. So if you really want a multi-grip pull down or rowing attachment, I would probably just look into one of the purpose-made ones that are made of aluminum. Obviously, nobody's going to be taking these sleeves on and off when you want to switch doing exercises. Although, I gotta say, doing these movements now does make me really want to buy one of those Cleva or Rogue lat pull-down attachments. This does feel pretty good. Now let's talk about the economics. As of the time of recording this video, you can order this bar for $200 from Gearforfit, and similar ones to it, such as the Fringe Sport one or the ones from French Fitness, are priced at $100 more at $299. And of course, there's the original, the Kabuki Cadillac, which costs around $500 or more. Are you really getting that much more bar for your money? I doubt that. So, would I recommend that you buy this bar if you're in the market for a multi-grip Swiss bar? Yes, I would absolutely recommend this bar. I think this bar represents the best bang for the buck for the functionality and the features that you can get with $200 compared to other Swiss bars in the market, and I would absolutely recommend it. If you enjoyed watching this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos. See you next time.